一战华工。You may have heard of us. You may not. It doesn't matter. Our country was a total wreck.
The Qing dynasty had collapsed. We were a republic in turmoil. Around every corner lurked avaricious warlords. Civil war followed civil war.
Mama always said, drink a couple of bowls of dumpling water first. The bowls were very large. After drinking, we had no room for anything else.
Yuan Shikai, China's first president, they said he had died. An emperor masquerading as president. We had had enough of emperors.
中国 was weak.
Foreign powers had carved us up like a melon. Guafen.
Politics are a complicated business. It's best left to the politicians. In China, we had a lease on the deep water harbour of Weihai Wei in Shandong province. That's where the world's finest silk comes from. We call it Shantung. It's also where we and the Germans set up the well-known Tsingtao Brewery. The first bottle was opened just before Christmas, 1904. The French, the Germans, the Russians, the Japanese, we were all there. China was known as the sick man of Asia.
We were the first to establish a Chinese regiment in Weihai Wei.
It was all rather unfortunate. The Great War went on longer than expected. It certainly wasn't over by Christmas. With all our men at the front fighting bravely for king and country, there weren't enough left over to do the hard work, very important, behind the lines. Fortunately, the Chinese were at great pains to ingratiate themselves with us.
They said that we from Shandong were fit for purpose. We are tall, strong, tough enough to withstand the harshest winters.
We became their allies.
We offered the Chinese a good deal.
We were in such financial straits that anything was a good deal.
Dear wife, 老婆,
It's a war. In Europe.
欧洲, it's regular income.
But so far away.
It's unheard of for us peasants. No mean to get this money.
挣钱? What has it got to do with us?
We're not going as soldiers. We're going as laborers. 华工. Look, we only have a shabby old house. All around us is such poverty. People are starving, dying every day.
Who's going to look after us when you're gone?
The British will pay you $10 a month.
They are not family. If you go, don't bother coming back.
I could speak English. They needed interpreters. It was an opportunity to see the world.
They had registered with their thumbprints.
It was the morning of the 8th of the 12th lunar month, when the weather was at its coldest and the ground completely frozen. I have to go to Zhouchun railway station. All who registered to join the Labour Corps had gathered there. Mei Mei stayed up till the moment the train left for Tsingtao.
What have we done to be so cursed by the gods?
My brother got on the train. Huoche. He tried to drag me off, but I drew out my knife and I cut off my queue. I was no longer repressed by Manchu emperors.
Farmers, carpenters, brickmakers, dressers, weavers, brass smiths, blacksmiths, bakers, stonemasons, acrobats, and ex-soldiers.
I was a Presbyterian missionary in China. China was not a British colony.
How were we to deal with the Chinese?
People like me could help, who had come to China and could speak the language. I joined the Chinese Labour Corps. Armed with my brownie camera, I captured many special moments.
They took me on. I became a low-ranking officer.
We had a medical examination, new clothes, vaccination, a brass bracelet with an identity number. We felt clean.
They were a humorous lot, childish and forgetful, but willing and quick.
It was common knowledge that coolies cannot be shaped the same way as Westerners. They have to be hammered into shape.
250 of them, packed shoulder to shoulder, sleeping in cramped bunkers.
It takes moral courage to leave the fresh Manchurian breezes and go into that which is best left undescribed.
I was warm.
Schenk, come here.
At mealtime, he would pick on an elderly waiter who still had his queue, grab his pigtail, yank back his head and demand to be served.
One day, they picked on a farmer who happened to be a martial arts expert.
Mistake. He got his comeuppance.
They have gentle and generous natures. Their gestures eloquent. And anybody that knows the coolie would not deny him of a sense of humor.
It enables him to overcome with some odd, uncanny cheerfulness the petty annoyances of life.
Believe me, a Chinese with a grouch is as rare as a camel without a hump. A company of Chinese would make the finest audience in the world. They would paper a house most splendidly.
True, they were not recruited as soldiers, but a good dose of army discipline can only be of the greatest benefit to any chap.
Fortunately, they do everything en masse, and seldom strugglers in the way of efficiency.
You! Over there! Go!
Why are the coolies glaring?
Sir, go sounds like dog in Chinese. Go. It's an insult.
One night, we were talking about our families. Someone sang a folk song. We felt very upset. Some of us couldn't stand it anymore. We grabbed the gatekeeper, got his keys, and ran away.
They were fools to go, running away from good food, good clothes, and much rest, slipping the opportunity to see the world. What more could a coolie desire?
There's a saying that goes, a fish can swim through all of China's rivers and lakes during its short lifespan. If that's so, surely man can see the whole world in his lifetime.
There's also a saying, once you leave, You'll never come back.
If China wants to become strong again, we must embrace the industrial age. We have remained ancient for far too long. Confucius said, "Is it not pleasant to learn from constant perseverance and application?"
活到老，学到老。
The whole matter to them is a business proposition. To earn money.
The ship, Chuan, is huge. It looks like part of the dock. The ocean beyond is endless.
Are we going to go across this ocean? 过海?
In orderly fashion, we marched up 3 gangways with our kit bags.
The smell of the sea. Salt. And breakers leaping up with high crown. Hai Lang!
There were 13 officers and 4,200 labourers strong. 8.5 companies altogether, with 5 interpreters and a medical assistant.
11 p.m. to 1 a.m. 2 hours during which the wind steadily increased in violence. A typhoon shrieking. Sleet lashing the deck.
The next day, the ship was coated in ice.
The wind had dropped. My ears were pierced. A sharp shrill whistle. I didn't even feel the ship move.
All of us, we rushed to the deck rails and scuppers.
When will we return?
The gale had left a considerable swell in the North China Sea.
It terrified some of the Chinese, who began bowing up and down.
I let them impress.
I tried to cheer them up by laughing at them.
Childish! Coolies. Aged 14 to 18.
There are thousands of us in the hold.
Couldn't stand straight. The ship rose and fell. Rose and fell. My stomach knotted. My head would not stop spinning.
I wasn't affected, but it was upsetting for me to see my Shungdi, brothers, suffer so. I tried to help as best as I could.
The Chinese showed a sort of spirit that made one positively love them.
Quite wonderfully good at university.
When we felt better, we explored the engine room, the forecastle head, the gun platforms, the galleys, steel plates, lifeboats, life belts, winches, twisting all nuts and everything mechanical. Everything.
The coolies brought their lax habits along. Orange peel, paper, peanut shells, leek stalks, and other malodorous things discarded everywhere.
Well, we divided them into sanitary squads, and we divided them into police, police, stokers, cooks, cabin and bar boys, bakers, or laundrymen.
The cabin boys wore white smocks. They called themselves angels.
They loved to make beds and dance smocks, and if we had a photo of a loved one, they would make paper flowers to decorate the frames with.
We were very organized in the ship. We had gangers overseeing us.
Haircutting and shaving was carried out by our brother barbers. Those who were bakers learned to bake bread from the Lao Wai chef for breakfast.
They were always happy to volunteer.
They were a coughing, spitting people, a disregard of their person, a savage aversion to washing.
Some of us learned how to work the electrical. Just think, one reason not to wash clothes with hand.
They have responded to stern treatment with the right spirit of obedience.
We fought for the garbage tins. One company tried to outdo the other in cleanliness.
They were simple, submissive, and remarkable at enduring serious illness.
Wonderfully healthy. Magnificent bodies.
They were fine with the bare necessities of life, and remarkable in extreme labour.
Constant nagging, endless explanation, and strict punishment has awakened in them the pride of a clean life.
It was good to learn British ways. One night, the engines fell silent. The full moon hung in the sky.
Are we in France? England. The sun rose. We saw little boats full of people in kimonos.
We're in Nagasaki, Japan.
They've placed ladders on the side of the ship. They are loading coal.
It wasn't long before the engines fired up again. The Chinese, eager for new experiences, crowded onto the forecastle and stared at a disappearing Japan.
The secret of maintaining peace and satisfaction among some 4,000 coolies on a long trans-Pacific voyage was to endow for them each day with interest.
We wanted to gamble, but that was strictly forbidden.
We did play chess though.
Money still changed hands from time to time.
We sprung a surprise on them, a sale of musical instruments.
We were so delighted to learn from those who could play.
Some could play the fiddle, others could play the flute, 笛子.
We felt our homes dancing in our hearts.
They adapted to being on ship and lived just as they did on land. There was the actor who never ceased to play the fool since becoming a labourer.
Mischief was written on every feature of his wide bronze face.
For just a coolie, he was almost dangerously intelligent.
Dr. Kwong, a lad of 25, he was bookish and didactic. When not practicing, he read.
He works in France at a Chinese hospital.
It was an educational interlude in his life, after which he would return to China to finish his final exams.
There was Kwong, the Cantonese interpreter. He never abused his power. And even the most idiomatic English was never too much for him.
He saw the war a remarkable outline.
He joined the war for patriotic and financial motives.
There was the good looker, who was so like a girl.
That on passing him one desired to catch his eye and hold him at gaze.
He was a friend of all.
Even after being promoted to a policeman, he was a friend of all.
One day, we arrived in Canada, the land of the Lao Wai.
In 4 hectic hours, we drew 60 to cook for the men and run the kitchen.
The company commanders taught the art of stoking boiler fires, and rice was boiled in huge cauldrons. The first meal was ready.
There were 15 of us in each tent. We could see the blue pine hills, the beautiful bark of the arbutus, the snows of the Rockies. The scent of the Douglas fir filled the air. Oh, it was so relaxing. The turmoil of China seemed a distant memory.
We would always be leaving for France the next day.
But tomorrow came and we went nowhere.
We met Canadian soldiers.
They were quite unlike stern British officers.
We joked, played games with them, had fun, making all kinds of objects, from bits of fencing wire, belt buckle perhaps, or unweave our coconut mats and reweave them into baskets to sell.
When they had visitors, they turned into entertainers, acrobats, singers, and musicians. And they liked to show off their numbered wristlets and kit bags like objects of art.
One of our visitors dropped a bouquet of carnations by mistake.
I found pink paper and made loads of carnations, all kinds to decorate our camp with.
On the ground in front of our tents, we smoothed out the earth.
And we made pictures with paint crushed out of different colored bricks and stones.
One day, tomorrow did come.
We continued our interminable journey.
We were split up. Half of us went by train, 火车, the other half by ship, 船.
I traveled by 火车 across Canada.
We avoided paying landing tax by preventing the coolies from stepping foot outside the train.
Traveled in sealed up cattle trucks for 6 days. We felt trapped in the stomach of some belching and panting dragon. When we got out, they put us on another ship.
We went all the way by Chuan, the Empress of Asia. It was very cramped. It was so hot that we often slept on deck.
In separate groups, we sailed over the Atlantic to England before crossing the Channel to France.
We didn't all make it to France though.
Some of us lie buried in Liverpool, Plymouth, and Folkestone.
We finally landed.
France!
法国!
The village we arrived at had suffered a great deal of damage by shell fire.
We heard this loud droning. In the heaven above us was this huge, strange insect. Someone called out 飞机, airships!
There were flashes of light! A huge fireworks display. One Feiji caught fire.
It swirled towards the ground like a fiery butterfly. Then it exploded like a firecracker.
How could such massive constructs of metal float up there?
They even carried people. It was magic.
Coolies were dispatched to ports, mines, farms, and munitions factories.
Their camp was behind the front lines, their headquarters at Noël-sur-Mer. There was a hospital for the Chinese. and a prison at Noel's.
We thought it best to keep nations separate from each other, even in death.
We became fitters, riveters, carpenters, strikers. Chinese company officers were appointed to oversee us.
And so we got down to work helping the army. 军队. We worked 10 hours a day. Every day. We had 3 days off a year.
They were used to this in China.
It was hard work, loading and unloading the cargo at the ports, keeping the railways and roads in good repair. We built huts and aerodromes, hundreds of miles of trenches.
Often in danger of being shot.
I was in charge of ensuring that the Chinese were not sent to the front to fight. They were labourers, not soldiers. There were many attempts to break this rule.
Toiling away like this made me feel so tired, so late, but it saved me from going mad. I jumped! Dada! Dada! Some of us heard these noises for the rest of our lives. Jiang, Da Pao, Zhada, Jiang, Da Pao, Zhada, Jiang, Da Pao, Zhada, Jiang, Da Pao, Zhada. All around us were the nightmarish noises of war.
From the ground, we picked up those who had left this world.
Graveyards kept swelling with bodies of restless ghosts.
It was their task to collect the bodies of the dead and bury them.
There was a hospital for the Chinese.
We were allowed to build a pagoda there.
It is written in the Tao Te Ching, all in the world know what beauty is. In so understanding this, we know what ugliness is.
Some of us were able to tame wild French birds.
Every day, we worked.
The track riveting shop was run entirely by us. De-tracking, de-rolling, dismantling. Assembling sprockets and pinions.
Metal walls moved like chariot.
An amazing invention. The tank. Tonker.
Our job was to keep them in good repair.
70 of us were proud to be part of the camouflage section for the painting of all tanks. The repair and manufacture of all camouflage material.
They were good at growing flowers and vegetables, not surprisingly. They even won prizes at Abbeville Agricultural Show.
The officers would sometimes enjoy boxing with us, ho, ho, or learning martial arts.
During our holidays, we would decorate our huts with paper cuts and lanterns. Walk on stilts. Dance younger. Made kites. And sang our operas. We were happy. We felt our souls release. Many of our brothers, Shundi, couldn't read or write. I taught them. Some of them didn't even know the address of their own homes, nor how to write their own names. I wrote letters for them. One day, the war came to an end.
At last, 和平, peace.
The soldiers put down their arms.
But we continued on working. We felt 伤心, sad doing this. We missed our families We felt very孤独, lonely. We wanted to go home.
For the next 2 to 3 years, we stayed on to clear up the great mess of barbed wire, collecting debris and unexploded bombs and grenades.
Digging up bones and exhuming bodies for burial. Carving gravestones, covering up the scars on the land.
Each of us received a medal from the British Army after the war, carved in bronze rather than the usual silver.
Some met French women, made new families, opened their own shops.
They decided to stay. Out of waste war material, they created mementos.
Like carving shell cases.
These are now called trench arts.
Burnt all over. Burnt all over. My lungs were crushed. They call it a Spanish flu.
11 went from our village. Only 10 came back.
My dear wife, I had intended to write to you earlier, but it was only until now that I found a gap in my daily routine to do so. We're still at the same base camp. On the 13th, it was the Dragon Boat Festival, and we had the day off. All the workers were made up. And we put on the young girl show. Da, 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 da. Along the dance street. It was a very good show. However, the foreigners seemed somewhat bemused by the event. Chee. My greetings and best wishes. Your clumsy husband.
What a jack of all trades the coolie is. What plastic stuff he is made of. How quickly he responds and adapts to a different set of circumstances.
He is the perfect epitome of the manner in which Chinese has succeeded in so many parts of the world, where others have failed to settle down.
The coolie is the happy colonist. Hardship he endures with a grin. He makes the foreign land his own.
There is not a manual job in which he does not attempt, and not many that he does not excel.
When the fighting had ended and the last battle won, that's when the diplomats moved in. Beautifully attired and with exquisite manners, they gathered round the table at the Palace of Versailles to draw up the peace treaty. The Chinese were there too. They were expecting to regain Shandong, which at the time was under the Japanese, but as you know, there were other more pressing matters to resolve. It was therefore with the deepest regret that His Majesty's government found themselves unable to support Chinese aspirations at that time.
They were repatriated.
We'll never call them Chinks again.
Furthermore, the largest panoramic painting at the time, Pantheon de la Guerre, commemorating World War I, with everyone in it. They painted out the Chinese and replaced them with Americans.
But now, 100 years later, Zhongguo is the superpower in Asia and the second largest economy in the world. Does anyone ignore us anymore? I don't think so. And happily, we teach Chinese to the whole world.
天天向上，成绩棒棒的，年轻人八方紧抱，事业棒棒的，老人家神清气爽，身体棒棒的，到来年男女老少全都棒棒的。